In the year 2025, my daughter-in-law used my credit card 37 times and for Christmas demanded $5,000. What she said next shattered my soul into 1,000 pieces. I never thought that the money I had worked so hard to save would become the weapon they would use to destroy me. Today, I'm going to tell you something I never expected to share. And if for a second you feel this sounds familiar, I just ask that you leave a like and subscribe. It will help me keep venting. My name is Martha Peterson. I'm 68 years old and live in a small apartment in the Lower East Side neighborhood of New York City. From my kitchen window, I can see the Essex Market, where every morning I used to buy fresh produce to prepare the meals that were always on my table. My apartment always smells like freshly brewed coffee and the flowers I keep in every corner. Because after 45 years working as a nurse at New York Presbyterian Hospital, I learned that a home should be a refuge, not a prison. I had been a widow for 3 years since Michael, my husband, lost his battle with cancer. 3 years in which I dedicated myself body and soul to caring for my only son, Andrew, and his family. My daughter-in-law, Chelsea, and my 2 grandchildren, Caleb, who is 12, and Sophia, who is 8, had become the center of my universe. They were all I had left of a life that was once full. This Tuesday began like any other. I woke up at 7 in the morning. I prepared my coffee with cream in the porcelain mug Michael gave me on our 20th anniversary and sat down to review the monthly accounts. I had a habit of keeping everything noted in an old notebook, every dollar spent, every bill paid. I was meticulous with money because my monthly Social Security check of $980 had to cover everything: my upkeep, gifts for the grandchildren, and of course the constant little helps my family needed. The phone rang as I was finishing my second cup of coffee. It was Chelsea, my daughter-in-law, with that sweet voice she had learned to use when she needed something. "Martha, honey, how are you? I notice you've been very lonely lately." "Fine, dear. I'm just here. I cleaned the whole house yesterday, hoping you would all come over for lunch, but I guess things got complicated. Oh, I'm sorry, we forgot to call you. But hey, I need to ask you a favor. Could I borrow your credit card? Mine is blocked, and I have to buy some urgent things for the kids." It was the 5th time this month she had asked for the card. It was always urgent, always for the children, always with that implicit promise that she would return it soon. And I, like an idiot, never said no. How could I deny something to the mother of my grandchildren? "Of course, dear. Come by whenever you want to pick it up." "Perfect. I'll be right over. You're a darling, Martha." She hung up before I could ask about the children, about Andrew, about how they were. But I was left with a strange feeling in my chest, like when you sense something isn't right, but you don't know exactly what. Half an hour later, Chelsea arrived at my door. She was wearing a new coat that I recognized from the expensive stores downtown. Name-brand shoes that cost more than my monthly Social Security check. Her hair was freshly done at the salon, and those perfect nails she got every 2 weeks at a high-end parlor in the Upper East Side. Everything about her screamed abundance, luxury, money. Money she apparently never had when it came to her emergencies. "Hi, mother-in-law," she said, giving me a quick kiss on the cheek without looking me in the eye. "Sorry for the rush, but I have to go pick up Caleb from school." I handed her the card, and she tucked it into her designer leather purse as if it were the most natural thing in the world. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't even stay 5 minutes for coffee. She didn't mention when she would return it. She just left, leaving behind the scent of expensive perfume and that feeling of emptiness that accompanied me more and more after her visits. That night, as I prepared a solitary dinner of macaroni and cheese and salad, my cell phone rang. It was a text message from the bank. "Authorized purchase of $245 at Macy's." Then another. Authorized purchase of $89 at Sephora. And another. Authorized purchase of $156 at Banana Republic. I sat down on the living room sofa, surrounded by the family photos that decorated every available surface. Photos of the grandchildren on their birthdays, of the vacations I had paid for so the whole family could go to the Jersey Shore together, of Christmases where I cooked a turkey with mashed potatoes for 10 people, and they arrived empty-handed, but with empty stomachs too. The messages kept coming throughout the night, one after another, like small digital stabs, reminding me how naive I had been. The next morning, when I finally summoned the courage to call the bank and check my balance, I discovered the soul-crushing truth. In less than 24 hours, Chelsea had spent $1,247 from my account. On perfume, clothes, expensive restaurants, even at an electronics store where she had bought something costing $400. All while I ate my solitary mac and cheese dinner, and she pretended she needed money for urgent things for the kids. But that wasn't the worst part. The worst came when I decided to review the transactions for the last 3 months, those months in which Chelsea had been so loving toward me, so present, so concerned about my loneliness. 37 purchases, 37 times she had used my card in 3 months. Exclusive perfume shops in the Soho neighborhood, designer stores, restaurants where one dinner cost what I spent on groceries in a week. She had bought clothes, shoes, purses. She had even paid for beauty treatments and sessions at a luxury spa. The total amounted to $4,890 share, almost $5,000 of my savings. Money I had saved penny by penny for years, working double shifts at the hospital, giving up luxuries, living on the bare minimum to have something set aside for emergencies or to help my family when they needed it. But apparently for Chelsea, my money wasn't help. It was a right. It was her paycheck for tolerating me, for occasionally including me in their lives, for allowing me to be the grandmother of her children. I sat at the kitchen table, the bank statement trembling in my hands, feeling the world crumble around me for the second time in 3 years. The first time was when Michael died. This time was worse because Michael left without wanting to go, without choosing to abandon me. But my family was stealing from me while smiling to my face. The phone rang again. It was Andrew, my son, the boy I had raised with so much love, to whom I had given everything I had and more. "Mum, how are you? Chelsea told me you lent her the card. Very kind of you, as always." "Andrew, I need to talk to you. About the money, about—" "Mum, I can't right now. I'm in an important meeting. You know how these things are with work. We'll talk later, okay?" And he hung up, as always, as he had done for the last few months. Every time I tried to have a serious conversation with him, every time I needed him to be my son and not just Chelsea's husband. That night, for the first time in months, I cried myself to sleep. I cried for Michael, who had promised me I would never be alone. I cried for the lost money, but above all, I cried for the foolishness of having believed that family love had no price. I didn't know this was only the beginning. 4 days passed without Chelsea returning the card. 4 days during which my heart raced every time my cell phone rang, expecting another bank message. But what came was much worse. Friday morning, while watering the plants on the balcony overlooking Bleecker Street, I saw Chelsea leave the hair salon across the street. She had a new cut, blonde highlights shining under the New York sun, and in her hand she held several shopping bags, one from J. Crew, another from Victoria's Secret, and a small one from a jeweler I recognized by its distinctive gold bags. My blood ran cold. All those purchases were made with my money, with my card, while I was calculating if I had enough to buy the medication the doctor had prescribed for my blood pressure. I followed her with my eyes until she turned the corner toward the Broadway Lafayette subway station. She didn't have the children with her. She didn't seem to have any urgency related to them. She was just a 35-year-old woman enjoying a shopping day paid for with her mother-in-law's money. That afternoon, I decided to do something I had never done. I called Caleb's school directly to ask if he needed anything. The secretary informed me that all tuition and fees were current, paid by his father, and there were no extracurricular activities scheduled that required additional money. So why did Chelsea need to use my card so urgently? Monday arrived with a call that made my legs tremble. It was my sister Rose, who lives in Boston and barely spoke to me since I was widowed. Her voice sounded strange, uncomfortable. "Martha, I have to tell you something I saw on Saturday. I was at the Woodbury Common Premium Outlets. You know, those outlets where they sell cheap designer clothes." "Yes, Rose, what is it?" "I saw Chelsea there. She was buying super expensive purses, the kind that cost more than $500. And when she went to pay, Martha, she pulled out a card that wasn't hers. I heard her say, 'It's my mother-in-law's, but she doesn't notice anything.'" My world collapsed. Rose continued. "She told the cashier that you had given her permission to use your money as if it were hers, that you were very old and no longer kept track of expenses well. She was laughing, Martha. She was laughing while saying that." I hung up the phone without saying goodbye. I sat on the living room sofa, surrounded by all those family photos that now felt like mockery. In one of them, Chelsea was hugging me during the last Christmas, smiling for the camera while I held Sophia in my arms. Was she already planning to rob me then? Did she already see me as an old woman easy to deceive? That same afternoon, I gathered my courage and called Andrew at his office. He worked at an insurance company in the financial district, a stable job that allowed him to support his family without needing to take money from his 68-year-old mother. "Andrew, I need to talk to you about the money Chelsea spent with my card." "Mum, what are you talking about? Chelsea told me she only bought a few things for the kids." "Son, she spent almost $5,000 in 3 months on perfumes, clothes for herself, expensive restaurants, nothing for the children." There was a long silence. So long I thought the call had been cut off. "Mum, you're exaggerating. I'm sure it's not that much money." "I have the bank statement right here. Do you want me to read every purchase to you?" "No, Mum, there's no need. But look, Chelsea is going through a difficult time. Her mother is sick, the children are growing and need more things. If she asked you for money, it's because she really needed it. Did she need $200 shoes? Did she need $150 beauty treatments?" "Mum, please, don't be so mean. She's your daughter-in-law. She's family. Besides, it's not like you were going to spend that money on anything else." Mean. My own son had called me mean for not wanting to be robbed. "Andrew, I saved that money working double shifts for years. It's for my medical expenses, for emergencies." "Mum, you're already 68. What emergencies are you going to have? Plus, when you die, all that money is going to be ours anyway." The line fell silent. Not because the call had been cut off, but because I was speechless. My son, the boy I had raised alone after his father abandoned us when he was 5 years old, the boy I had given all my love and all my sacrifices to, had just told me he was waiting for me to die so he could take my money. How can you say that to me? I didn't mean it in a bad way, Mum. I just mean that, well, families should help each other. And if Chelsea needs some things, what's the problem? The problem is that she's stealing from me. Don't say those things. Chelsea is not a thief. She's my wife and the mother of your grandchildren. And frankly, Mum, I think you're being a little paranoid." He hung up. My own son hung up on me after defending her for robbing me. That night I couldn't eat dinner. I stayed seated in the kitchen, looking at the empty chair where Michael used to sit to read the newspaper after work. What would he have done? Would he have defended our son, no matter what he had done? Or would he have seen the truth I was beginning to understand? Tuesday morning, Chelsea showed up at my door without warning. She wore a forced smile and a bag of croissants from the French bakery on Thompson Street, the one that charges $13 for each little pastry. "Good morning, Martha. I brought you breakfast. I thought we could talk." She walked into my house as if it were hers. She went to the kitchen and started making coffee, without asking if I wanted any. Her movements were confident, territorial. She was no longer pretending to be the timid daughter-in-law who needed permission for everything. "Andrew told me you're a little confused about the money." "I'm not confused, Chelsea. I know exactly how much you've spent and on what." She sat across from me. She crossed her legs elegantly. She was wearing pants I recognized from one of her recent shopping sprees, and a blouse that probably cost more than my entire month's grocery bill. "Martha, I think you don't understand the situation. Andrew and I have a lot of expenses. The children go to a private school. We have a mortgage. We maintain a certain standard of living that requires certain sacrifices. And what does that have to do with me? Well, you live alone in this big apartment. You have social security that you don't spend completely. And we are your family. It's normal for you to help us. Helping is one thing. Stealing is another." Her smile disappeared for the first time since she had arrived. "I don't like that word, Martha, and I don't think Andrew would approve of it either." "Are you threatening me?" "I'm not threatening you. I'm just explaining to you how normal families work. Grandparents help their children. Children take care of their grandparents. It's a fair exchange. And when are you going to start taking care of me? How do you think you got to the hospital the last time you fainted? Who do you think convinced Andrew to buy your medications when you didn't have money?" Lie. I had never fainted, and I had always bought my own medications. But she said it with such certainty that for a moment I doubted my own memory. "Look, Martha, let's make this easy. You give me full access to your account. I manage your expenses intelligently, and we all live in peace. It's better this way. You no longer have to worry about anything, and we'll make sure you have everything you need." "Are you crazy?" "No, Martha. I'm being practical. Because the alternative is that Andrew has to make more difficult decisions about your future. And believe me, none of us want to get to that." She got up, picked up her purse, and headed toward the door. Before leaving, she turned to me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. "Think about it, Martha. You have until the weekend to decide. And by the way, I'm going to need you to transfer $2,000 to me before Friday. The children are going on a field trip with school and need special equipment." She left, leaving me alone with the scent of the croissants I no longer felt like eating, and the certainty that my life had just turned into a nightmare from which I didn't know how to wake up. That night, while reviewing the bank statement for the 5th time, I realized something that chilled my blood. In one of the most recent purchases, Chelsea had spent $340 at a store called Babies R Us. At first, I thought that perhaps she had bought something for the children. But when I called the store to ask, they informed me that the amount had been spent on clothing for a newborn baby. Chelsea wasn't pregnant. Or at least, she hadn't told me. Who had she bought those clothes for? Did she have a double life I didn't know about? Or had she simply found another way to spend my money on things that had nothing to do with me or my grandchildren? As the clock struck 11 at night, I understood that my family didn't see me as a human being with feelings and needs. They saw me as an economic resource that had to be managed until it was exhausted. And the worst of it was that my own son agreed with that. Friday arrived without me having transferred the $2,000 Chelsea had demanded. Not because I didn't want to help my grandchildren, but because I had decided to call the school to ask about that supposed field trip. The answer left me cold. "Excuse me, Mrs. Peterson, but there is no field trip scheduled for this month. In fact, the next school trip is planned for May and costs $75 per child, not $2,000. Chelsea had lied to me shamelessly, and not only about the money, but about my own grandchildren, using my love for them as a weapon to manipulate me. That afternoon, as I tried to concentrate on knitting a scarf for Sophia, the doorbell rang. It was Andrew, but he didn't come alone. Behind him was a man about 45 years old, suited with a briefcase, who introduced himself as Stephen Miller, a lawyer specializing in family law. "Mum, we need to talk. We've been very worried about you." They sat down in my living room as if they owned the place. The lawyer took out a folder of documents and placed it on the coffee table, right next to the vase with the fresh flowers I changed every week. "Mrs. Peterson, your son has told me that lately you've been very confused about the issue of money. You accuse your daughter-in-law of stealing from you. You don't remember authorizing purchases. You show paranoia." "I'm not confused. I have all the proof of what Chelsea has spent." Andrew looked at me with that expression of forced patience he used when he thought I was being irrational. "Mum, the other day you told me Chelsea had spent $5,000, then you said it was 4,800, then 4,900. You can't even remember the exact amount. That's concerning." "It's $4,890 exactly, and I know it because I have the statement right here." I went to look for the bank papers, but when I returned, the lawyer had spread several documents on the table. "Mrs. Peterson, we understand your confusion. At your age, it's normal for certain cognitive declines to begin to appear. That's why we have prepared these documents that will allow you to live peacefully while your son takes charge of your finances." "My finances? What are you talking about?" "It's a broad power of attorney. It will allow Andrew to manage your bank accounts, your investments, even make decisions about your home if necessary. It's for your own good, Mum." I glanced over the documents. They were full of complicated legal terms, but I understood enough to realize that if I signed those papers, I would lose all control over my money, my house, my life. "I'm not signing this." "Mum, be reasonable. Do you really want to keep worrying about bills, the bank, all those complicated things? Let us take care of it." "My complicated things. I've managed them for 68 years without problems." The lawyer intervened with a professional but condescending voice. "Mrs. Peterson, if you don't cooperate voluntarily, your son will have to consider other legal options. A guardianship proceeding, for example. It would be more traumatic for everyone. But yes, it is necessary." "Guardianship? Were they threatening to have me declared mentally incompetent?" "Get out of my house, both of you. Right now." "Mom, don't be stubborn. We just want to help you." "If you want to help me, give me back my card and the money you've stolen." Andrew sighed and stood up. The lawyer gathered his papers with calculated movements, as if this reaction had been expected. "Mrs. Peterson, we are leaving these documents for you to think about calmly. You have 1 week to decide. After that, we will take the measures we deem necessary to protect you from yourself." They left, leaving me alone with a fear I had never felt before. My own son was trying to steal my autonomy, my dignity, my right to decide my own life. That night, I couldn't sleep. I walked through the apartment, remembering every corner where Michael and I had been happy. The kitchen where we prepared breakfast together on Sundays. The balcony where we sat to watch the sunset over the New York rooftops. The bedroom where we had planned our dreams and where I had cared for him during his final months of illness. Was all that going to fall into the hands of Andrew and Chelsea? Were they going to sell my home to finance their luxury lifestyle? Monday, I decided to do something I should have done weeks ago. I went to the bank to cancel the card Chelsea was still using. The employee, a young man named David, attended to me professionally, but when he saw the transaction statement, his expression changed. Mrs. Peterson, these spending patterns are very irregular. Did you authorize all these purchases? No. My daughter-in-law kept the card and has been using it without my permission. That's a crime. You should report it. She's family, it's complicated. David looked at me with understanding. He had probably seen similar cases before. Ma'am, I'm going to immediately cancel this card and issue you a new one with a different PIN. I also recommend that you activate security alerts so you receive notification of any unusual activity. Can you do anything else? I can put a note on your account so that any attempt to change your information or any transfers exceeding $500 will require your physical presence at the branch, with identification. It was a small but significant relief. At least I had regained control over my money, even if only temporarily. That afternoon, while returning from the bank, I ran into Susan, my neighbor from the 5th floor. She was a woman my age, a widow too, with whom I exchanged cordial greetings, but we had never had a deep conversation. Martha, are you okay? You seem very worried lately. I don't know why. Perhaps because I had been so alone in all this. I told her what was happening. Susan listened without interrupting, nodding occasionally with an increasingly serious expression. Martha, my sister went through something similar in Philadelphia. Her son and daughter-in-law convinced her to sign papers she didn't understand. In the end, she lost her apartment, her savings, everything. Now she lives in a nursing home where they visit her once a month. What can I do? Seek help. There are organizations dedicated to protecting older adults from family abuse, and lawyers specializing in these cases. Don't let them convince you that you're crazy or confused. The numbers don't lie. That night, for the first time in weeks, I felt a small spark of hope. I wasn't crazy, I wasn't confused, and I wasn't alone. The next day, early in the morning, the phone started ringing non-stop. First Andrew, then Chelsea, then a voice I didn't recognize but who introduced herself as Chelsea's mother, then an aunt of Andrew's who lived in Dallas and with whom I hadn't spoken in years. Everyone had the same message. I was sick. I was confused. I needed urgent help. Martha, I'm Patty, Chelsea's mother. My daughter told me what's happening, and I'm very worried about you. Did you know you called Caleb at 11 last night? Does it seem normal to you to wake up a 12-year-old boy at that hour to tell him your problems? I hadn't woken Caleb. He had answered immediately, as if he were waiting for the call, but no one was going to believe my version anymore. Patty, your daughter stole almost $5,000 from me. That's not confusion. It's a crime. Oh, Martha, Chelsea showed me the receipts. All those purchases were made with you. For you, new clothes because yours are very old, beauty treatments because you needed to take care of yourself a little, dinners at restaurants because you shouldn't always eat alone. My daughter is taking care of you as if you were her own mother. Dinners at restaurants. I hadn't been to a restaurant with Chelsea all year, but she had prepared an alternative version of the facts, complete with justifications for every dollar spent. And those documents you don't want to sign. Martha, it's for your own good. My late husband signed something similar when he started with Alzheimer's. It allowed us to care for him without him having to worry about anything. Alzheimer's. Now it turned out I had Alzheimer's. I hung up, but the phone rang again immediately. This time it was Sarah, Andrew's older sister, calling from Houston. Martha, what's wrong with you? Andrew told me you're accusing Chelsea of stealing from you. That girl is an angel, always looking out for you, always visiting you. Sarah, when was the last time you visited me? That's not the point, Martha. The point is that Chelsea does visit you. She does worry about you, and you repay her by accusing her of being a thief. Why is she a thief? Martha, my brother is devastated. He says he no longer recognizes the woman who raised him, that you've become bitter, paranoid, cruel to the people who love you. Every call was like a hammer blow to my self-esteem. Every person who called me had the same story, the same accusations, the same worries about my mental health. It was impossible for so many people to have reached the same conclusions independently. This was orchestrated. At 10 in the morning, when I finally managed to make the phone stop ringing, I went downstairs to buy bread, as I did every morning. Evelyn, the baker who had known me for 15 years, looked at me with a strange expression. "Good morning, Martha. How are you? Your daughter-in-law was here yesterday asking about you." "Chelsea? What did she want?" "She was worried because she says you've been forgetting important things lately, like, for example, that she's never had access to your money. She asked me if I had noticed that you were more confused lately." I felt my blood run cold. Chelsea had come to my neighborhood, to my bakery, to construct her version of the story with people who had known me all my life. "Evelyn, do you think I'm confused?" The woman looked at me with compassion, but also with something that looked like pity. "Oh, Martha, I don't know what to think. Your daughter-in-law seemed very worried, very sincere. And it's true that sometimes you repeat things, or you ask me the price of bread as if it were the first time you've bought it." Was I repeating things? Was I asking prices I already knew? It was possible. When you're worried, when your mind is occupied with serious problems, it's normal to be distracted in everyday conversations. But Chelsea had turned those normal distractions into evidence of senile dementia. I returned home with the bread and sat down at the kitchen table to think. I took out a new notebook and started writing down everything that had happened since the first time I lent the card to Chelsea. Dates, amounts, exact conversations. If they were accusing me of being confused, I needed to have everything accurately documented. At 12 noon, the doorbell rang. It was Sophia, my 8-year-old granddaughter, but she didn't come alone. She was accompanied by a woman I didn't know, well-dressed, with a professional briefcase. "Grandma, Mum told me to come see you. She says you're very sick." The woman introduced herself as Eleanor Davies, a psychologist specializing in geriatrics. "Mrs. Peterson, your family has asked me to do an initial assessment of your cognitive state. It's just an informal conversation, nothing to worry about." "I don't need any assessment, and especially not one requested without consulting me. I understand your resistance, but your son is very worried. He told me that you accuse family members of stealing money from you, that you call your grandchildren late at night to talk to them about adult problems, that you refuse to sign documents that would help you live more peacefully." Sophia looked at me with big, frightened eyes. They had probably told her that Grandma was sick, that maybe I didn't remember who she was. "Sophia, honey, do you think I'm sick?" "I don't know, Grandma. Mum says that sometimes grandparents forget things and get sad. But I remember you always make me cookies when I come over." The psychologist took some papers out of her briefcase. "They are just some simple questions, Mrs. Peterson. What day is today? What year is it? What is your home address?" "Today is Thursday, January 23rd, 2025. I live on Bleecker Street, number 15, third floor left, New York City, 10012. And this is a setup. Can you tell me the names of your closest relatives?" "My son, Andrew Peterson Martin, born on March 15th, 1987. My daughter-in-law, Chelsea Herrera Santos. My grandchildren, Caleb, born in 2012, and Sophia, born in 2016. My husband, Michael Peterson Ruiz, passed away on October 8th, 2021. Do you need more details, or do you have enough to prove that I don't have any cognitive problems? The psychologist took notes, but her expression hadn't changed. Your family has commented that lately you show signs of paranoia. Is it true that you believe your daughter-in-law is stealing money from you? I don't believe it. I know it. I have bank statements that prove it. And why do you think she would do something like that? Because she needs money to maintain a lifestyle she can't afford on my son's salary. Have you considered the possibility that you yourself authorized those purchases and don't remember them? Have you considered the possibility that a family is manipulating a professional to get her to declare a woman incompetent because she's an obstacle to their financial plans? Eleanor Davies closed her notebook and looked at Sophia, who had been listening to the entire conversation in silence. Sophia, can you wait in the living room while I talk to your grandma? When the girl left, the psychologist leaned toward me with a more serious expression. Mrs. Peterson, I'm going to be honest with you. Your family is very worried, but after speaking with you, I see no obvious signs of cognitive deterioration. Your answers are coherent, your memory is intact, and your arguments are logical. Then why are you here? Because your son paid me $200 for this home consultation, and he told me that if I didn't find evidence of a mental problem, he would look for another professional who would... I remained silent, processing what I had just heard. Are you telling me that Andrew is buying a diagnosis? I'm telling you that there are unscrupulous professionals who are willing to write any report if the price is right, and your son seems willing to pay that price. What can I do? Seek legal help immediately and document everything, every conversation, every threat, every bank transaction. You're going to need proof. Eleanor Davies stood up and put away her things. I'm going to write an honest report about this visit. In it, I will specify that I found no evidence of cognitive deterioration or mental incapacity. But I recommend you don't be complacent. Your family is going to keep trying. When Sophia and the psychologist left, I was left alone with a terrifying certainty. My son was willing to destroy my reputation, my dignity, and my autonomy to gain access to my money. And what hurt me the most was understanding that it probably wasn't his idea. That afternoon, I called the number Susan, my neighbor, had given me. It was an association that helped older adults who were victims of family abuse. The woman who answered, named Brenda, listened to me for an hour without interrupting. Martha, what you are telling me is a classic pattern of economic and psychological abuse towards older adults, and unfortunately it's much more common than people think. What can I do? First, change all your bank passwords and revoke any authorization you have given to third parties. Second, find a lawyer specializing in the protection of older adults. Third, start recording all conversations with your family. Record? With your cell phone. In the United States, it is legal in many states to record conversations you are a part of, and you will need those recordings as evidence if this reaches the courts. Do you think it will reach the courts? Martha, your family is already building a legal case against you. The psychologist's visit, the attempts to get you to sign powers of attorney, the coordinated calls from different family members, all of that is designed to create a file demonstrating your supposed incapacity. And if they succeed? If they manage to get a judge to declare you incompetent, you will lose all control over your life, your money, your home, even where you live. Everything will be your son's decision. That night, for the first time since everything had started, I didn't feel alone. I had allies. I had a plan. And I had something my family had underestimated. 45 years of experience as a nurse, where I had learned to remain calm under pressure and make difficult decisions in crisis situations. They had chosen the wrong victim. Friday morning, I woke up with a different feeling. For the first time in months, I had slept deeply, without waking up every hour wondering what new humiliation awaited me the next day. I had a plan. I had allies. And above all, I had the certainty that I wasn't yard crazy. The first thing I did was call the bank to request an appointment with the manager. David, the employee who had helped me before, put me directly through to Jennifer Smith, a woman about 50 years old who received me in her office with the seriousness my situation deserved. "Mrs. Peterson, I have reviewed your account, and indeed, there are very irregular spending patterns. Purchases at luxury stores, expensive restaurants, transfers to accounts you don't recognize. All done by my daughter-in-law without my authorization. I understand. I am going to immediately implement an enhanced security protocol on your account. Any transaction over $100 will require direct phone confirmation with you. Additionally, I am going to cancel all previous authorizations and change all access codes. Is there anything else you can do?" "Yes. I'm going to open a special savings account that will be completely shielded. Only you will have access. Not even with power of attorney could that money be touched without your physical presence and 2 witnesses." Jennifer Smith explained to me that they had specific protocols for cases of family financial abuse. It was more common than I thought. "Mrs. Peterson, we also recommend that you consider diversifying your savings. If you have other properties, stocks, or investments, it's important to protect them too." I remained silent. I hadn't told anyone, not even Andrew, that besides my bank savings, I had other assets. Michael had been very cautious, and for years we had bought stock in solid companies, conservative investment funds. We had even invested a small amount in Bitcoin when it started to become popular, more out of curiosity than anything else. "What kind of investments?" "I have a small portfolio in stocks and funds. Nothing spectacular, but something my husband and I accumulated over the years." "Perfect. I recommend you transfer everything to this new shielded account. That way, it will be completely protected." I left the bank feeling more secure. For the first time in months, my money was truly safe. But I knew that when Chelsea tried to use the card and realized it no longer worked, the reaction would be immediate. I was right. At 3 o'clock in the afternoon, my phone rang with the fury of 1,000 demons. "What have you done, Martha? My card isn't working. I'm at Bloomingdale's with the children, and I can't pay for the clothes they need." I activated the mobile recorder as Brenda had taught me. "It's not your card, Chelsea. It's my card, and I've decided to cancel it." "Are you crazy? How am I going to buy the children's things? With your money? Or with Andrew's money? Listen to me closely, you stupid old woman. If you don't fix this right now, you're going to regret it. The children are going to know that their grandmother hates them so much that she doesn't even want to buy them the clothes they need. The children are going to know the truth, Chelsea, that their mother is a thief." "A thief? Are you calling me a thief? I'm going to sue you for defamation. And I'm going to make sure Andrew requests your immediate institutionalization." "Go ahead. But first, give me back the $4,890 you stole." Chelsea hung up with a scream of rage. But I had the entire conversation recorded, including her threats and her implicit recognition that she had spent my money. An hour later, Andrew arrived at my house. He didn't ring the doorbell. He used the copy of the keys I had given him years ago for emergencies. He burst in like a whirlwind, his face red with anger. "What do you think you're doing, humiliating my wife in public? Protecting my money from a thief? Stop calling her a thief. Chelsea is not a thief." "Then explain to me where the $4,890 she spent in 3 months went." She spent it on things for the family, on things you also enjoy. What things, Andrew? The $200 shoes? The dinners at restaurants you've never taken me to? The beauty treatments I've never had? Mum, are you obsessed with money? You weren't like this before. Before, I didn't have a daughter-in-law who robbed me. And before, my son didn't threaten to institutionalize me for defending what's mine. Andrew sat on the sofa, and for a moment I saw the boy he had been, the son I had raised with so much love. But when he spoke again, that boy had disappeared. Mum, Chelsea is pregnant. The world stopped around me. Pregnant? Was that why she had bought baby clothes with my card? Pregnant? Why hadn't they told me? Because we knew you would react like this, that you would turn it into an excuse to be even more controlling with the money. Controlling? It's my money. It's money that is going to be ours when you die. What's the difference if we use it now or later? There it was again, the same phrase he had told me on the phone weeks ago. For my son, I was a temporary obstacle between him and an inheritance he considered his by right. The difference, Andrew, is that I'm still alive. And while I'm alive, the money is mine. Mum, I'm going to be very clear. Either you cooperate voluntarily, or we will take legal measures. We have testimonies from relatives confirming your mental deterioration, medical reports documenting your paranoia, and evidence of erratic behavior. What medical reports? The psychologist you brought didn't find anything wrong with me. That psychologist didn't understand the case well, but there are other professionals more understanding of complicated family situations. Again, they were talking about buying false diagnoses. Andrew, are you really capable of doing this? Of destroying your own mother for money? I'm not destroying you, Mum. I'm protecting you from yourself. And who is going to protect me from you? My son got up and headed towards the door. Before leaving, he turned to me with an expression I had never seen on him before. You have 1 week to reconsider your attitude. After that, we are going to act accordingly. When he left, I remained seated in the living room, surrounded by all those family photos that now seemed like evidence of a life that had never really existed. How long had Andrew been seeing my money as his? Since Michael's death? Since before? That afternoon, I called Brenda to tell her what had happened. Martha, you did the right thing protecting your money, but now comes the most difficult part. They are going to intensify the psychological pressure. What else can they do? They can completely isolate you, convince the grandchildren that you are sick and dangerous. They can spread rumors in the neighborhood about your mental health. They can even file a guardianship lawsuit based on false testimonies. And what can I do? Keep documenting everything. But you also need to start living your life differently. How? When was the last time you did something just for pleasure? That you bought something nice for yourself? That you went on a trip? That you had fun without feeling guilty? I remained silent because I didn't know how to answer. Since Michael's death, my life had completely revolved around my family. I didn't have hobbies. I didn't have close friends. I didn't have plans that didn't include Andrew and his children. I don't remember the last time. Well, it's time for you to start. Because if your life is based solely on your family, they will always have power over you. But if you have your own life, your own interests, your own happiness, then they won't be able to blackmail you with threats of abandonment. That night, for the first time in years, I took out the travel guides that Michael and I had collected during our marriage. We had dreamed of visiting Portugal, getting to know the cities of New England, going on a cruise in the Caribbean. I opened my laptop, which I barely used, and connected to the internet. I searched for travel deals for seniors, cruises, hotels with retiree discounts. It was surprising how many options existed for people my age. For the first time in months, I was excited thinking about the future, a future that didn't depend on whether my family visited me or not, whether they included me in their plans or not, whether they loved me or not. The next day, Saturday, I did something I had never done. I went alone to have breakfast at the cafe in Washington Square Park. I ordered coffee with cream and a croissant, took out a book I had been meaning to read, and spent 2 hours enjoying my own company. It was liberating. For the first time in months, no one asked me for money. No one made me feel guilty. No one threatened me. It was just me, my coffee, my book, and the life of New York flowing around me. When I returned home, there was a message on the answering machine. It was Caleb, my grandson. "Grandma, Mom says you're very sick, and maybe we won't be able to see you anymore. She says the doctors say it's dangerous for us to visit you because you might get violent. Is it true, Grandma? I don't want you to be sick." The message broke my heart, but it also gave me the strength I needed. They were using my grandchildren as emotional weapons, filling their heads with lies about me to get me to surrender. But I wasn't going to surrender, because now I understood something fundamental. I wasn't just fighting for my money. I was fighting for my right to exist as a person, not as an economic resource. And that was a fight I intended to win. That night, I called Caleb back. When he answered, I could hear voices in the background that suddenly went silent. "Caleb, honey, Grandma is not sick. She is very well, and she loves you very much." "But Mom says—" "Mom is sometimes wrong, Caleb. We grown-ups are also wrong. But I will always love you, and I will always be here for you. Can I come see you?" "Whenever you want, honey. My door is always open for you." I hung up, knowing that this would probably be the last conversation I would have with Caleb for a long time, but also knowing that I had planted a seed of doubt about the official version of my mental illness. And sometimes, a seed of doubt is enough for the truth to find its way. The week Andrew had given me as an ultimatum passed in a strange calm. I didn't receive threatening calls. No psychologists appeared at my door. No family members worried about my mental health arrived. It was the silence before the storm, and I knew it. I took advantage of those days to follow Brenda's advice. I hired the services of Kelly Adams, a lawyer specializing in the protection of older adults who had her office near Times Square. Kelly was about 40 years old, had short hair, and that determination only found in women who have fought to make their way in difficult professions. "Martha, I have reviewed all the documentation you brought me, the recordings, the bank statements, the medical reports. Your family is building a very elaborate case, but they make a fundamental mistake." "Which one?" "They assume you are a passive victim. They haven't factored in that you can defend yourself intelligently and organizedly." Kelly explained to me that we could take preventive measures. We could file a protective order to prevent Chelsea from accessing my bank accounts. We could sue for misappropriation. We could even file a complaint for threats and coercion. "But Martha, before starting a legal war, I want you to be sure of what you want. Once we take the first step, there is no turning back. Your relationship with your son will be destroyed forever." "Kelly, my relationship with my son was destroyed the day he decided I was an obstacle between him and my money. I'm just realizing it now." "Are you prepared for the consequences? Because they are going to try to isolate you completely. You might never see your grandchildren again." That question hurt me more than all of Chelsea's threats combined. Caleb and Sophia were what I loved most in the world. Was I willing to lose them to maintain my dignity? "Kelly, if I do nothing, what example am I giving them? That it's okay to steal from older people. that it's okay to threaten and manipulate, that love is bought with money. You're right. Sometimes, protecting the people you love means teaching them that there are limits that cannot be crossed. Thursday afternoon, exactly 1 week after Andrew's ultimatum, my doorbell rang. When I opened the door, I found the entire family: Andrew, Chelsea, Caleb, Sophia, and again the lawyer, Stephen Miller, with his briefcase of documents. "Mum, we've come to solve this once and for all." They entered without waiting for an invitation and spread out in my living room as if it were a boardroom. The children sat on the sofa, clearly uncomfortable. Caleb looked at me with a mixture of confusion and sadness that broke my heart. Stephen Miller took out his papers again. "Mrs. Peterson, we have brought updated documents, more specific powers of attorney that will allow you to maintain some control over minor decisions while your son takes charge of the important finances." "I already told you I'm not signing anything." Chelsea got up from her chair and approached me. Her belly was already starting to show under her fitted blouse. "Martha, I'm 4 months pregnant. This baby is going to need things. He's going to need a new room, clothes, a crib, a stroller. Caleb and Sophia are also going to need space because they are going to be older siblings." "Congratulations on the pregnancy, Chelsea. But that doesn't give you the right to rob me." "I'm not robbing you. I'm asking you to be part of this family, to contribute so that your grandchildren and your new grandson have the life they deserve." "Contribute? I have contributed almost $5,000 in 3 months. How much more do you want me to contribute?" Andrew intervened with that voice of forced patience he used when he thought he was being reasonable. "Mum, we've calculated that we need approximately $15,000 more to prepare for the baby's arrival and make some renovations at home. It's an investment in your grandchildren's future." $15,000? Now they were talking about figures that represented years of my savings. "And what if I don't have $15,000? "You have it, Mum. We know you have more money than what appears in your checking account. Dad was very cautious, and I'm sure he left investments, funds, maybe even properties." There it was. In the end, they had reached the real goal. They didn't just want access to my checking account, they wanted my entire estate. "How do you know there's more money?" "Because we've been investigating, Mum. Dad had a considerable investment portfolio, stock in AT&T, in Bank of America, in ExxonMobil, also investment funds and even some cryptocurrencies. All of that is yours now, and when you die, it will be ours." "So you've been snooping through your father's papers?" "We've been responsible, Mum, making sure you know how to manage your estate correctly." Stephen Miller intervened again. "Mrs. Peterson, your investment portfolio is valued at approximately $450,000. It's a considerable amount that requires professional management. If you sign these documents, your son will be able to optimize those investments to generate better returns." $450,000. It was true that Michael had been very cautious, but I had never imagined that our small monthly investments had turned into such a fortune. The problem was that now my family knew it too. And what guarantees do I have that Andrew is going to manage that money for my benefit and not for his? "Mum, I'm your son. Of course, I'm going to manage it for your benefit." "How have you managed for my benefit the money Chelsea spent these months?" Chelsea moved closer until she was right in front of me. "Martha, stop playing games. Are you going to sign those papers right now, or are you going to regret it?" "Is that another threat?" "It's not a threat. It's a promise. If you don't cooperate, we're going to make sure you spend your last years completely alone. The children are going to know that their grandmother prefers money over her own family." Caleb suddenly got up from the sofa. "Mum, stop. Grandma is not crazy, and she's not mean. She's just Chaitson because you always ask her for money and never come to see her just because. Chelsea turned to her son with a look that chilled my blood. Caleb, go to your room. This is an adult matter. I don't have a room here. This is Grandma's house. I said go. Caleb looked at me with those big eyes he had inherited from his grandfather Michael. Grandma, is it true that you have a lot of money? I have what your grandpa and I saved working many years, Caleb. And is it true that Dad and Mum want to take it from you? Caleb, it's complicated. It's not complicated, Grandma. It's simple. It's your money. And if you don't want to give it to them, you don't have to. Andrew approached his son with a stern face. Caleb, you don't understand the situation. Grandma is sick and needs help managing her money. Grandma is not sick, Dad. She's sad because you are mean to her. At that moment, I knew that whatever the price, I had to fight. Not just for myself, but for Caleb, for Sophia, for the baby that was about to be born. Because if I allowed my family to rob me, I would be teaching them that abuse was normal, that manipulation was acceptable, that older people didn't have the right to defend what was theirs. I took out my cell phone and activated the recorder. Chelsea, repeat what you just said about making sure I spend my last years alone. Put that phone away. It's my phone. In my house. I can record whatever I want. Stephen Miller slammed his briefcase shut. Mrs. Peterson, this is not productive. If you don't want to cooperate voluntarily, we will have to explore other legal avenues. Perfect. My lawyer will be happy to respond to any legal procedure you want to initiate. Your lawyer? Andrew asked in surprise. Did you think I was going to sit around waiting to be robbed? I hired Kelly Adams, a specialist in the protection of older adults, and I gave her all the evidence of what you have done. Chelsea paled. What evidence? Bank statements, recordings of our conversations, witness testimonies. I even have photographs of you spending my money in luxury stores. That's espionage. That's protecting myself from a thief. Andrew got up and headed toward the door. Mum, I hope you're prepared for the consequences of what you're doing. I am prepared, Andrew. The question is whether you are prepared for the consequences of what you have done. Chelsea looked at me with a rage she no longer bothered to hide. Martha, you're going to die alone. And when you die, we're going to take everything anyway. So what you're doing is useless. It serves to prove to myself that I still have dignity. They left like a storm, dragging the children with them. Caleb turned to me from the doorway and made a gesture that touched my soul. He blew me a kiss with his hand and silently mouthed, I love you, Grandma. When I closed the door behind them, I was left alone in my living room, surrounded by the silence they had left behind. But it was a different silence than before. It wasn't the silence of abandonment. It was the silence of freedom. For the first time in months, I was the owner of my own house, my own money, my own life. And although my heart ached for what I had lost, I knew I had gained something much more important. My self-respect. That night, I called Kelly to tell her what had happened. Martha, you were perfect. Now we have more evidence, direct threats, attempted coercion. We even have a minor as a witness to their behavior. What's going to happen now? Now, Martha, you are going to live your life. And they are going to have to learn that stealing has consequences. For the first time in a long time, I went to bed feeling that I had done the right thing. Whatever came next, I would face it with my head held high. Because I had learned something fundamental. The price of maintaining peace at any cost was too high, when the cost was your own soul. 3 months after the final confrontation, my life had changed in ways I never would have imagined. The silence I had feared so much had become my most precious ally. I woke up every morning without the fear of checking my phone to see if there were threatening messages or missed calls full of reproaches. My daily routine now included things I had forgotten I liked. Tuesdays and Thursdays, I went to water aerobics classes at the Chelsea Recreation Centre. Monday afternoons, I attended a book club at the New York Public Library, where we had read everything from Toni Morrison to John Grisham. Fridays, I had signed up for a computer course for older adults, where I had learned to use the computer with confidence and had even opened a social media account. But the most important thing was that I had started to travel. The first trip I took was to San Francisco, following one of the guides Michael and I had saved for years. It was a 5-day bus trip organized with a group of people my age who, like me, had decided that it's never too late to discover the world. In San Francisco, I tried the best clam chowder of my life, walked on streets that reminded me of the old neighborhoods of New York, and sat on the shore of the bay, writing in a diary I had started keeping at Brenda's recommendation. Writing down my thoughts helped me process everything I had lived through and plan everything I wanted to live. One afternoon, while having coffee at a pastry shop in the Mission District, I received a call I didn't expect. It was Caleb. "Grandma, can I talk to you?" "Of course, honey. How are you?" "I'm fine, but I miss coming to your house. Mum says we can't see you because you're mad at us." "Caleb, I'm not mad at you or Sophia. I could never be mad at you." "Then why can't we go see you?" "Because your parents think I'm a bad influence." "That's a lie, Grandma. You've always been good to me." We talked for 20 minutes. Caleb told me that there was a lot of talk about money at home lately, that his parents argued at night when they thought the children were asleep, and that Chelsea constantly complained that the selfish old woman had complicated their lives. "Grandma, is it true that you have a lot of money?" "I have enough to live comfortably, Caleb. But above all, I have something more important. I have my dignity." "What is dignity?" "It's knowing that you are valuable for who you are, not for what you have. It's not allowing anyone to treat you badly, even if they are family." "I understand. Like when I don't let the kids at school take my sandwich, even if they are bigger than me." "Exactly like that, honey." When I hung up, I realized that for the first time in months, I had talked to Caleb without feeling pain. I still missed him terribly, but I knew I was teaching him a lesson more valuable than any gift I could buy him. That people have the right to defend themselves from abuse, even when it comes from their own family. Upon returning from San Francisco, I found several letters in my mailbox. One was from my bank, informing me that my investments had generated dividends worth $3,200 in the last quarter. Michael had chosen very well where to put our money. Stock in solid companies that continued to yield profits years after his death. Another letter was from Kelly, my lawyer, informing me that Andrew and Chelsea had tried to file a guardianship lawsuit, but it had been immediately dismissed because they had no valid medical evidence. In fact, the judge had shown interest in the recordings I had provided as evidence of attempted coercion. "Martha, they made a major strategic mistake," Kelly explained when I called her. "By trying to sue you without solid evidence, they exposed to the judicial system that their motivation is not to protect you, but to access your estate." "Does that mean they can't do anything else?" "It means that if they try again, they will have to demonstrate with irrefutable medical evidence that there truly is cognitive deterioration. And after the independent evaluation we did, that's going to be very difficult." The independent evaluation had been Kelly's idea. A forensic neuropsychologist had performed a complete battery of cognitive tests that demonstrated that my mental capacity was completely normal for my age. I had even scored above average in several areas. "Also, Martha, there's something else. Their lawsuit gives us grounds to file a countersuit for misappropriation. If you want, we can recover all the money Chelsea spent with your card. Is the hassle worth it? That's up to you to decide. But consider that recovering that money would mean sending a clear message. Stealing from older people has consequences. I thought about it for days. In the end, I decided to go ahead with the countersuit, not so much for the money as for the principle. If there were no consequences for what they had done, they could try it with another vulnerable, older person. A month later, Chelsea had to return $4,890 to my bank account. The court order was clear. She had 30 days to make the full reimbursement, or she would face criminal charges for misappropriation. The day I received the transfer, I decided to celebrate it in a way Michael would have approved of. I went to the Saks Fifth Avenue store on Fifth Avenue and bought the first nice thing I had bought for myself in years. An elegant navy blue dress, comfortable but pretty shoes, and a pearl necklace I had been looking at for months but had never dared to buy. That afternoon, I went to dinner alone at the restaurant in the Plaza Hotel. I ordered Atlantic salmon, a glass of white wine, and for dessert, chocolate cake. The waiter treated me with the respect due to a lady who dined alone because she wanted to, not because she had no alternative. During dinner, I thought of Michael. How proud he would be to see me like this. Elegant, independent, the owner of my own life. I also thought of my parents, who had worked hard to save money that now allowed me to live with dignity. And I thought of Caleb and Sophia, hoping that one day they would understand that what I had done was out of love, not selfishness. The following month, I signed up for something I had been wanting to do for years. A cruise to Alaska. 15 days visiting coastal cities in Alaska, Canada, and Washington State. Juneau, Vancouver, Seattle. Places Michael and I had dreamed of getting to know together. On the cruise, I met Hope, a widow from Chicago who had a similar story to mine. Her daughter had tried to convince her to sell her condo to invest the money in something more profitable, which her son-in-law, coincidentally, was going to manage. Hope had been lucky enough to have a lawyer brother who had warned her in time. Martha, what surprises me the most is how your perspective changes when you stop living to please others, she told me one night as we watched the sunset from the ship's deck. I spent years feeling guilty about spending money on myself, as if I didn't deserve it. And how do you feel now? Like I woke up from a very long dream. My money is mine, my time is mine, my decisions are mine, and if my family doesn't like it, that's their problem, not mine. Hope became a great friend. When we returned to the States, we stayed in touch. We talked on the phone twice a week, shared book recommendations and travel plans. It was wonderful to have a friendship based on common interests and genuine affection, not on family obligations or financial needs. One day while sorting through old papers, I found a letter Michael had written to me during one of his hospital stays. The letter read, "Martha, if something happens to me, promise me that you will be happy, that you will travel to all the places we dreamed of visiting, that you will buy yourself nice things, that you will live, not just survive. The money we have saved is not for you to hoard like a treasure, it's for you to use to be happy." I cried reading those words, but not from sadness. I cried with gratitude because Michael had known me well enough to know that I would need that permission to be happy, and I cried with relief because I was finally fulfilling his last wish. That same week, I received another unexpected call. It was Sophia. "Grandma, is it true that you have a new life?" "Who told you that, honey?" "Caleb. He says his friend's grandma saw you on a cruise and that you looked very pretty and very happy. New York is a small world. It was logical that some acquaintance had seen me during my new adventures." "It's true, Sophia. Grandma is living a new life." And is there room for us in that new life? The question broke my heart, but at the same time it filled me with hope. There will always be room for you, honey, but it will have to be on my terms, not your parents'. What does that mean? It means that if you want to be part of my life, it has to be because you truly love me, not because you want my money. Grandma, we never wanted your money. We just want you. I know, my love, and I love you too. When I hung up, I knew that someday Caleb and Sophia would find a way back into my life. Maybe when they were older, maybe sooner. But when they returned, they would find me transformed into the woman I had always had the potential to be. Independent, self-assured, and aware of my own worth. For the first time in decades, the future seemed full of possibilities instead of full of obligations. And that feeling was better than any amount of money I could have in the bank. Because I had learned something fundamental. True wealth is not measured in dollars, but in the ability to live according to your own values, even when that means being alone. And I was no longer alone. I had the most important company of all. My own. A year and a half after that final confrontation in my living room, I am sitting on the terrace of my new apartment in the Greenwich Village neighborhood, writing these lines while the October sun filters through the leaves of the orange tree I planted in a large pot last month. Yes, I moved. Not because I was kicked out of my previous home, but because I decided I needed a space that was completely mine, without the ghosts of a life that no longer belonged to me. This apartment is smaller than the last one, but it has something the other one never did. It was chosen only by me, decorated according to my tastes, and every piece of furniture was bought because I liked it, not because it matched someone else's plans. The walls are full of photos of my travels. The Grand Canyon in Arizona, the canals of Boston, the mountains of Colorado. There are also more intimate photos. One of Hope and me, toasting on a terrace in San Diego. Another of my water aerobics group after winning a small local tournament. On the living room table there is a letter that arrived yesterday. It's from Caleb, who is now 14 years old and has apparently convinced his parents to allow him to write to me. The letter reads, "Dear Grandma Martha, I hope you are well. I am fine, although I really miss the afternoons at your old house. I wanted to tell you that I have started high school and get very good grades. I also wanted to tell you that I've been thinking a lot about what you told me about dignity. I think I understand better what happened. Mum had the baby. His name is Danny, and he is very chunky. Dad says that when I'm an adult, I can come see you if I want to. I hope you will still want to see me by then. I love you, Grandma. Caleb." I read that letter and knew that all the pain, all the loneliness, all the nights of crying had been worth it. Caleb had understood. At only 14 years old, he had understood that what I did was not out of a lack of love, but out of an excess of it. My life now flows at a pace I set. I wake up when I want. I eat whatever I feel like for breakfast. And I organize my days according to my interests, not according to the needs or whims of others. Tuesdays, I still go to water aerobics. But now I also go on Saturdays because I like it and because I can. Thursday afternoons, I teach literacy classes to immigrant women at a community center in Lower Manhattan. I discovered that teaching women my age who had never had that opportunity to read gave me a satisfaction I had never felt before. My finances are now completely under my control. I hired an independent financial advisor who helps me manage my investments. But all the decisions are mine. Last year, I invested in ethical funds that support renewable energy. I also donated $10,000 to the association that helped me during the worst moments, so they could help other older women going through similar situations. The money Chelsea stole from me, and which I recovered through the courts, I spent on something I know Michael would have approved of: a 3-week trip to Japan. We had always dreamed of getting to know Japanese culture, walking through its Zen gardens, trying its authentic food. I went alone, but I didn't feel alone for a single moment. I met other travelers. I participated in tea ceremonies. I visited ancient temples where I meditated on the changes my life had experienced. In Kyoto, while contemplating a rock garden at the Ryoanji Temple, I had a revelation that changed me forever. I understood that for decades, I had been living my life as if it were a movie where I was a secondary character. Andrew was the protagonist. Chelsea was the co-protagonist. The grandchildren were the supporting cast, and I was simply the extra who appeared when they needed something. But that afternoon in Japan, I understood that I was the protagonist of my own story. I always had been. I had just been too busy caring for others to notice. When I returned from Japan, I made a decision that surprised even Hope. I enrolled at New York University in the continuing education program for adults over 55. I had always wanted to study art history, but when I was young, I hadn't had that opportunity. At 70 years old, I could finally afford that luxury. My classmates are of various ages, but we all share something. The desire to learn for the simple pleasure of learning, not to get a job or impress anyone. We study Andy Warhol, analyze Gothic architecture, debate the impact of contemporary art. My mind, which for months had been occupied only with family problems and emotional survival, was now expanding in directions I had never explored. During these months, I have reflected a lot on what happened with my family. I have reached some conclusions that may perhaps help other people who are living similar situations. The first is that family love should not be confused with the obligation to tolerate abuse. For years, I believed that showing love meant always saying yes, giving money when asked, and never setting boundaries for fear of losing the people I loved. But true love includes mutual respect. And respect implies recognizing that every person has the right to their own decisions and to the protection of their own interests. The second is that getting older does not mean becoming invisible or irrelevant. Society teaches us that older people should be grateful for any attention they receive, even if that attention comes with abusive conditions. But age does not eliminate our right to dignity, autonomy, or happiness. The third is that it's never too late to reinvent yourself. I believed that at 68 years old, my life was basically over, that there were no more interesting chapters left to write. But these last 2 years have been the richest and most satisfying of my adult life. I have discovered passions I didn't know I had. I have made true friends. I have traveled to places that only existed in my dreams. The fourth, and perhaps the most important, is that chosen solitude is infinitely better than toxic company. For months, I was afraid of being left alone, that no one would visit me, that no one would worry about me. But I discovered that being alone with people who value and respect you is much better than being surrounded by people who only see you as a resource to exploit. Last week, I received an unexpected call. It was Andrew. His voice sounded different, more humble, less confident. "Mum, I know it's been many months without talking. I wanted to know how you are." "I'm very well, Andrew. Better than I've been in years." "I'm glad. I also wanted to apologize." Those words surprised me. I hadn't expected them, and honestly, I no longer needed them to move on with my life. Apologize for what exactly? For everything. For not defending you when Chelsea crossed the line. For trying to take control of your money. For not appreciating everything you had done for us for years. And what has changed, Andrew? Chelsea left. She took Danny and moved back to her mother's house. It turns out she was also spending money from my accounts without telling me. When I realized and confronted her, She told me she had learned from you that it was normal to take money from the family without asking permission. The irony was evident. Chelsea had applied the same strategy with him that she had used with me, but this time with her own husband. And the children? Caleb and Sophia are with me. It's been difficult, but we are learning to be a different family. Caleb talks about you a lot. He says he wants to see you. And what do you want, Andrew? I want you to get to know your son for real, not the man who let himself be manipulated by his wife, but the man you raised with so much love. That man is still here, Mum. He was just lost for a while. The conversation lasted almost an hour. Andrew told me he had been in therapy, that he had started to understand how Chelsea had manipulated the situations to pit us against each other, that he had realized his children needed their grandmother as much as I needed my grandchildren. Mum, would it be possible for us to start over, slowly, at your pace, on your terms? Andrew, I never stopped wanting to start over. I just needed it to be with mutual respect. I understand, and I promise you this time, it will be different. I don't know if Andrew will keep his promise. The years have taught me to be cautious with promises of change that arise after family crises. But I know that now I have the tools to protect myself if necessary, and the self-confidence to set clear boundaries from the beginning. What I do know is that my life no longer depends on my family accepting or including me. I have a full life, my own interests, genuine friendships, and projects that excite me. If Andrew and my grandchildren want to be part of that life, they will be welcome. But if not, I will continue to be happy, because I have learned the most important lesson of all. No one can give you permission to be happy. That permission can only be given by yourself, and I have given it to myself. Have you ever felt that your family sees you more as a resource than as a person? Have you been through something similar, where you had to choose between maintaining the peace and maintaining your dignity? I would like you to tell me in the comments if this story has sounded familiar to you in any way, and if it has touched your heart. If you think it can help someone who is going through a similar situation, please like and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach people who really need to hear them. Because sometimes, knowing that you are not alone in your experience is the first step to finding the strength you need to change your life.